Hello everybody, this is Adam here. I'm live on Kobo's Facebook page, I hope, if this is working. Do feel free to put any questions you've got in here and I'll try to answer them live on video. I know there's quite a few questions coming through on the page. I'm going to skip back in a minute and have a look at those so I can answer them in some more detail. But if you've got anything else you want to ask, please do put it as a comment on this post here and I'll get round to it as quickly as I can. Okay, I'm going to flick back through here and have a look at some of the more in-depth questions that have been asked already. Nika asks, what do you do when you get the what's the point attitude? It's sort of cyclical for me. I work hard and then get despondent because I'm not where I want to be. This is something all writers get. They all feel despondent from time to time. They all feel as if things aren't going how they want. And there are many reasons for that. I mean, we're creative people. That's the way our brains work. That's a very simplistic way of putting it, I know. But it's also because this business is cyclical. You know, you have a new book come out and you'll have a nice purple patch. You'll have some sales coming through. Maybe if it's a book that really hits the zeitgeist, you'll get lots of commercial interest. You get money coming in, and then it starts to tail off. And you're working on your next book. Perhaps the ads aren't working. Perhaps whatever was working for you at the time isn't anymore. And it happens. It happens to me. It happens to everybody. It's the nature of the business, really. There are lots of different ways people have of getting through that, but to be honest with you, the best thing any writer can do to keep things going is to write more books. That's the piece of advice that I always give. I'm going to skip back onto the video now and see if there are any. No, okay, I'm going to carry on and get through a couple more of these questions that have been asked, if I can find them. Simon Farrant says, I'm writing a trilogy in mystery/low fantasy. Do you think I should use a different name to my crime books? I'd prefer to use the same, but it would be better to use something else. This is a tricky one. It really depends. If you're at the start of your career and you're looking to write in genres which are quite different, then it may well be wise to run with two different names. There are reasons for that. Some of the distributors and some of the sales websites like Amazon, for example, their also bought system can get a bit confused. If you've got people buying your crime books and they're buying your fantasy books, for example, you're going to have fantasy authors and crime authors in there, and it's going to end up diluting your brand. Some of the other vendors don't work in quite the same way. So it really depends there. I personally would try to keep the names similar so that people can see it's you. Maybe you've got a middle name, Simon. I don't know. You could use a middle initial there. For example, my non-fiction books, I publish Adam Croft is on the cover, but on the vendors it says Adam L. Croft, so that it's not tied into the same author profile. I'm not diluting my brand there, but people can see that it's quite clearly me because there's only one letter different. It's a choice. If you're at the start of your writing career or near the start of your writing career, it's an easier choice to make. For me, for example, when I dipped into my non-fiction, it made sense to use my name that I'm known for, because that was something that was going to help me sell the non-fiction books, because I've become fairly well known as a self-published writer already. Okay, let's get on to some of these things that are coming in. Monica says hello. Hello, Monica. Hello to Laura as well. Sorry, I'm going to cough. I must apologise. I've had a stinking cold all week. I've had the man flu. I've been on the verge of death, and I've been left with this horrible hacking cough. So I do apologise in advance, and also for the light level as well. It's been a lovely sunny day all day here today, and literally 3 minutes before I start doing this, I don't know if you can hear this actually. I'm going to open my window just in case you can. There's a thunder and lightning going on outside now, and it's practically black outside. So quite atmospheric, very nice, but suffering a little bit with the light levels, and I see my camera is struggling to catch up a little bit. Nika says, what do you think is the ideal series length, and is it variable depending on genre? From a commercial point of view, as long as possible. Readers quite often like to stick with characters and to stick with a setting that they know and to read through in a series. I hope you can hear that. That's one long rumble of thunder. Well, what's I? Yes, characters like to read through a full series. readers do even. They like to get to know the characters, they like to get to know the setting. It's easier as well, let's face it, for a writer, I suppose, if you've already created that world, you've created those characters, it's easier to stick with that and to write books around that sometimes. In my main series now, I'm at a point where I'm 8 books in. I'm going to need to do something radical soon. And I've got a few ideas of ways to kind of spice it up and to inject new life into it. But I'm taking a little bit of a break there at the moment until I've worked out what that's going to be. Laura says, what do you think of KU versus wide? I've always been KU and I'm going to go wide at some point. Is it a lot more to advertise? I will play my cards here. I'll show you my hand. I always advocate going wide for many reasons. For me, for example, my books are not just my entire income, it's my whole family's income. So I can't be dependent on one company, especially not when that company is Amazon, frankly. And for me, Amazon is only a relatively small portion of my income, about 30%. So I personally much more enjoy being wide. I do quite well on the other retailers. It is more work to advertise, but do you know what? It's more fun. Amazon, the advertising, sometimes you can feel like you're just throwing mud at a wall and just waiting to see what sticks, whereas with the others you can be much more targeted. Kobo, for example, responds very well to BookBub ads. That's a big one. See, I'm getting sound effects with this as well. How good's this? So yeah, I would personally advise going wide. A lot of people do very well in KU. It's a decision for each author to make, but you asked my opinion, and yes, it is more work going wide, but you know what? It's worth it. Yeah, KU can be the easy option, but the potential there, if you go wide, is much bigger. It's worth the extra effort, believe me. And working with companies like Kobo is an absolute pleasure. The guys are brilliant, and that's well worth it, personally. Get rid of some more germs. Julie says, I rarely share my work as no one I know is interested in what I'm doing, and I've struggled to find a writing group that does decent critiques. How can I get a better idea of whether my writing is working except by submitting it to an editor? Very good question, Julie. This is a position I was in for a while, and to be honest with you, when is a book ever ready? I mean, I'm 20 odd books in now, and I still quite often feel that when a book is even a day before release day, I think sometimes it's not ready. I could sit there and I could edit forever, but sooner or later the book's got to get out there, the writing's got to get out there, and you will never become what you personally consider to be the perfect writer. You'll always be learning, you'll always be improving. So the wonderful world of self-publishing means that you can get that book or that piece of writing up for sale probably before tomorrow morning if you put it up now, and you'll be able to find out very quickly what people think of it and make a bit of money in the meantime. I think, rather than sort of handing it to friends and to editors, I think get it out there and see what people think. And there are lots of online forums as well. People can always give their feedback. But personally, I think the market speaks better than anything else, because everyone's got an opinion. Some people will like it, some people won't. And at the end of the day, you have to write what you want to write and what you enjoy writing, and see if the great public enjoy that. Monica says, I'm interested in your experience with Kobo. I'm wide, but I haven't reached a large audience outside Amazon. Kobo are brilliant to work with. If you fire them an email and introduce yourself and just say that you're looking to help build sales on Kobo, wow, I hope that lightning showed up on my camera there. Wow, there we go. This is great. I use Kobo's promotions on the Kobo dashboard as well. Ask them if that's not open to you at the moment, and they'll hopefully happily open that for you. And BookBub ads as well, I find work very well once those ads are pointed at your books on Kobo. Oh, blimey, lots of them here. Laura, she's in the UK as well, hasn't got Thunder yet. Hopefully that'll be coming to you soon, Laura. Whereabouts are you? Let me know. She says, are you direct, wide, or drafted digital? I go direct. All of the vendors now, Kobo particularly, are very, very, very easy to use. It used to be the case that lots of them weren't. Apple was impossible to work with at one point. It's now just a bit difficult. So I personally go wide, go direct, because I just find it's much easier. Laura, do you have a marketing strategy? How much would you spend on a new release? If that's not cheeky to ask, how fast do you publish? I do have a marketing strategy, but I could talk all day about that. I mean, strategy is a very, very wide thing. That's one focus, and your tactics are what forms part of that strategy. So my marketing strategy is sell more books, make more money. How much would you spend on a new release? That depends. I mean, if you're talking about marketing and advertising, that depends on what book it is. If it's in my main series, then not a lot, because most of the people buying that book are going to be people who've already read the series. So I mainly just advertise that to my list, and do a bit of BookBub advertising there as well. If it's a brand new psychological thriller, for example, that I've got high hopes for, then my budget's a lot higher. But then again, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've built up to that point. So it's not, me answering that question is not really going to help most people, I think, because everyone's got different budgets, everyone's got different aims, everyone's at a different stage of their career. How fast do you publish? I try to get about 4 books out a year at the moment. I think I did that last year as well, but I also had a baby and moved house, so it was a very busy year last year. Lucy, did you get any negative comments from those around you who think you should go via traditional publishing? No, I haven't. Not that I remember at all. When I started, self-publishing was just starting to take off. People didn't really know what it was, and by the time they did, and by the time it hit the mainstream, I was already doing quite well with it. So no, I mean, I have had a traditional deal. 2 of my books were bought by Thomas and Mercer, and it didn't work out for me. It's I prefer having that control over my books and being able to do what I want with them, and having that flexibility. Simon has just asked, I have 2 novellas and 1 novel out under my own name. I'm starting to finally find a little traction. I have also written 2 novels for a trilogy I intend to publish, each book a week or 2 apart. The books I have out now blur the lines between crime and horror. I feel leaning towards crime. The trilogy is low fantasy and mystery. Do you think it's worth separating the 2 genres apart with a pen name? I did actually answer this question for you at the start of the video, Simon. You might have missed that, but just to get the ball rolling, I picked up on a couple of the questions that had already been asked on the other post. So if you want to listen back to this video afterwards, then the answer to your question should be near the start. But to sum it up briefly, if you're near the start of your author career and the genres and the reader bases are likely to be close to each other, then keep it under the same stable. And if not, then I would say keep the name similar. So use Simon Farrant, but perhaps put a middle initial in the middle there as well. I've done that with my non-fiction. I've got a book on that's aimed at authors called The Indie Author Mindset, and that is published under the name Adam L. Croft, so that people still know it's me, but it doesn't show up on my main profile with all of my crime fiction books. So my crime fiction readers who aren't going to be interested in indie author mindset, it's not something they just want to read about people being killed. So I try to keep that separate, so I'm not diluting that and I'm not confusing the algorithms on those websites. Monica, hello, she's in Seattle. She says she loves thunderstorms. So do I, although there's now rain coming in through my window, so I'm gonna have to be a bit careful. Laura's in Staffordshire. Might not take too long then for the thunder to get up to you there. Laura says, do you publish on Google Play as well? I do, yes. Fairly recently, actually, because it was closed for a while and I just missed out on that. It was closed for a couple of years. But yes, I do publish on there, and I don't market to Google Play at all. I've not really looked too far into that, but still sell a fair number of books there. I get perhaps a few £100 a month there for no advertising. So as far as I'm concerned, that's free money. So Laura says, congrats on your baby. You have 2 young kiddies, 2 and 4, and we struggle with time. Yes, I know the feeling. James is 18 months old. I heard him screaming just outside the door there a minute ago. I think mummy's trying to put him to bed, and he's not too keen on that. Lucy, any advice on book covers? Should you go for expensive covers on first? Can you get good cheap covers? You can get good cheap covers, yeah. I would not necessarily go by price. I would go by what works for your genre. I would make sure that it matches the books that are selling well in your genre and in your subgenre, to make sure you're not putting a cover on there that you like, but your readers aren't going to like. So and do a bit of market research as well. Put a vote up on your Facebook page. Perhaps email your mailing list. People on your mailing list love to give their feedback and to get involved and to feel they're a part of your career. And also, extra little ninja tip here, if you send an email out to your mailing list with something that solicits some kind of reply from them, so you're saying, tell me which cover you like best, the first one or the second one, if people reply to your email, then that is going to mean you're far less likely to be marked as a spammer. Your emails are going to look far more natural, because let's face it, most of us receive a proper email from a friend or a colleague, we reply to it. And if that's how your email marketing behavior looks, then you're going to look like a natural emailer and not somebody who's just sending out a newsletter. So your mailing list emails are far less likely to go into things like the promotions folder on Gmail, and far less likely to go to spam. So extra little tip there. But yes, to answer your actual question, there are some good cheap covers out there. There are some pre-made ones which are good. I use Stuart Bache for my covers. He does covers for people like Mark Dawson. He's also done Stephen King, John le Carré. He's not the cheapest, and he's definitely not the most expensive. I think I pay around £400, I think, for a cover normally. But the books that he has done the covers for do sell the best. I can tell you that. Simon is giving Lucy a tip for a Facebook group for finding book covers. Excellent tip, Simon. Joe says, is the hook the most important thing for you now in coming up with a story idea? Yes and no. It's not the most important thing, because if I tried to write only books that had hooks or very marketable hooks, then I would be 2 or 3 years between books. My 2 biggest selling books have had very marketable hooks. There's Her Last Tomorrow, which is Could You Murder Your Wife to Save Your Daughter? And in January, I released a book called Tell Me I'm Wrong. The tagline for that is, what if you discovered your husband was a serial killer? That book has now gone on to outsell Her Last Tomorrow. Her Last Tomorrow has been out about 3 years, and Tell Me I'm Wrong's been out about 6-7 months. And that's now my biggest selling book. So yeah, hooks definitely do work. The book that I'm working on now, that I'm about halfway through, has also got a very marketable hook. So I've got high hopes for that one. Hopefully that'll be third time lucky, or the third time in a row maybe. But yeah, it's not vital, but it does help with marketing. If you've got a hook there that you can, in 5, 6, 7 words, you can grab somebody and make them think, oh, I mean, that's what it's all about on the internet. People are browsing, they're looking through Facebook, they're flicking through a BookBub email, and you're trying to grab their attention. There's lots of stuff going on the screen. If you've got a good image there, and if you've got a nice little hook that applies to them, using words like you're asking them a question, there's an impossible choice in there. There's lots of different elements you can throw in to make a really hooky hook. Laura says, we're considering a new pen name for our romance series. Is it too late to start a new pen name now? I know how flooded the market is. Is it hard to start from scratch? I wouldn't want to be starting from scratch now. It's a very exciting time to be a writer. It's one of the best times you're ever going to get. But as you said, it is a busy market now. I feel very fortunate to have had best part of a decade's head start here. I've spent that time trying to work out what works and what doesn't, and learning a lot of lessons and making a lot of mistakes along the way. So is it too late to start a new pen name? It depends. do you need to start a new pen name? Can it be published under a name that you already publish under and where you've already got a brand? Or can it be, as I mentioned earlier to Simon, can it be a similar name and you just throw in a middle initial or change it slightly so it's obvious it's still you? You're not completely starting from scratch. You've got your fan base there, but you're also differentiating it on the different sites. I mean, if you, let me know a little bit more about the specific circumstances. I might be able to tell you something that will be a little more useful for you specifically. Jamie Davis says, what's the thing you've learned you wish you'd done when you first started publishing? Oh, I wish I could narrow that down. I think I would have written more books more quickly. I think, like a lot of people, I thought that one book, I could just market that and advertise that and keep sales coming in. And to a certain extent you can, but it's never going to sell a lot. Even 2, 3, 4 books. I think once you're sort of past 5 books, 6 books, you're starting to get to the point where you can make a half decent income if you're advertising and marketing them correctly. No single book is going to provide you with a lifetime's income. I mean, even books like Her Last Tomorrow and Tell Me I'm Wrong did very well for me for a period of 6, 8 months, a year, however long. But even though they did make a lot of money, it's not retirement money. So you are going to have to keep writing and releasing lots of different books, and those books compound on top of each other. The more books you've got out, the more residual income you're going to make. For example, now I've got books that I wrote 7, 8 years ago that are still selling copies each day. They're not making much money each day, but they're making that money every day. And I haven't done any work on that book for the last 7 or 8 years. And hopefully they'll continue doing that for the next 10, 20 years as well. So, the books don't make much money up front, but going forward, that residual income means that you're earning money every day, even if you're not writing, and you should be writing. Laura Williams says, did you do any courses to get your knowledge, or has it taken time and experience to gain? But of both. Yeah, lots of time, lots of experience. In terms of the marketing, I've read lots and lots of books by lots and lots of great people. And the course that really kind of changed the way I thought about online marketing and about advertising my books, I did one of the early versions, I think the first or second version of Mark Dawson's Ads for Authors course, when it was just Facebook Ads for Authors at the time. But I would still strongly recommend that course. It's a great way to have a look at specifically advertising and marketing books online. Facebook, I think he also covers AMS. He certainly covers BookBub ads because I presented and produced the module for that. But yeah, I would definitely recommend Mark Dawson's Ads for Authors course if I can get my words out properly. Laura says, I see your Facebook ads all the time. Love the video clips. Did you find they work better than still image ads? Yes and no. The videos quite often do work better than still images. They catch people's eye much more, and you can do a bit more with them. But one of the little tricks and the handy things about about videos, is that you can then retarget the people who have watched that video. You can create a custom audience on Facebook and a lookalike audience from there as well. So you can target them with adverts for your other books later on, or create a lookalike audience so you can then target people who are like that person according to Facebook. So the video ads give you a bit more flexibility moving forward by being able to reuse that audience. Laura says, we've had a crossover with paranormal romance and Regency, so our also brought, so our pen name is tainted by a paranormal audience. Yeah, that is the problem with writing 2 genres. But I mean, Regency and paranormal, I mean, they are romance, I suppose, so they are linked. But I know that romance readers quite often have quite a tight niche they like to read in. So it's not an area of the market I know particularly well, so I don't want to say you should do this or you shouldn't do that. But I can see the problem. I can see the problem. Laura says, when you have a series, you don't advertise the first in the series till you have more. Well, I mean, if I had a new series now, if I started writing a new series now, I would probably write 2 or 3 books and publish them all at once, or very, very quickly after each other. I wouldn't write one book and then put it out and then put a second one out. I did when I did it because this was all very new to everyone and nobody really knew the right way to do things. I certainly didn't. But I think that doing it that way, putting out 3, 2 or 3 at a time, will help because readers know there's a full series there. I mean, even if you say it's book 1 of a trilogy, and people would expect there's going to be 2 more, but lots of times new authors don't come through on that, and readers don't like being let down. So if they know the books are there and they're already out, they can binge on those books. You can develop pretty much a ready-made audience there, and by advertising book 1 you can then get direct read-through pretty much immediately to book 2 and book 3. So if I was launching a new series, I don't think I would just write book 1. I think I'd write book 2 and book 3 and put them all out and market them from one from one point there. Sorry, I'm gonna have a sip of water because I've had a frog in my throat for about a week and a half. So I'm just having a look through your comments here and your questions. Jamie Davis says, highly recommend Mark's course. Laura says her friend's doing Mark Dawson's course. She said it's great. I'm hoping to jump on soon. Yes, it is. Simon says the Mark Dawson course is great. Laura says, do you do pre-orders? I do. I have tested long pre-order periods, short pre-order periods, and I've tested not doing them at all. Not doing them at all didn't really work all that well. So I do them. I tend to have a pre-order period of about a month for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's enough time for me to let everybody know that the book's coming out and to build up a bit of buzz. It's not too long that they're thinking, well, what's the point in me pre-ordering a book that's not out for 7 or 8 months? I might not want it then. I might not have the money then. And it also means that I don't have to wait either, because I don't like to put a book up for pre-order until I've finished it, until it's definitely ready to go out. And quite often I don't have the title until the book's finished, or sometimes even weeks after the book's finished. So for me, once that book is done, it's ready to go out. And even for me, waiting a month is painful. So I wouldn't do a longer pre-order period than that. And I haven't found that it's beneficial either to do a longer pre-order period than that. Some of the vendors like you to, so that they can help you set up all sorts of different marketing opportunities and what have you. But 2 issues with that are that, first of all, it really doesn't make too much more thunder. It really doesn't make too much of a difference if they do. It doesn't boost sales all that much. It's you make a lot more money by having the book out a year earlier than you would waiting longer. And I can't remember the other reason. The thunder distracted me. Sorry. Do you do any series with the same character, or do you do different characters per book? A bit of both. I've got 2 series. I write the Night in Culverhouse crime thrillers, which is a police procedural series, crime fiction set in a fictional town based on my hometown, but don't tell anybody that. And I also write the Kempston Hardwick mysteries, which are kind of a quirky, traditional pastiche on the Golden Age style detective mysteries. They're a very tongue-in-cheek look at traditional detective fiction. If you're in the UK, if you've seen a series called Jonathan Creek, they're kind of in that style. They don't take themselves too seriously. They deliberately, what's the word I'm looking for without swearing, take the mickey out of themselves. There's lots of tropes and lots of nods to Poirot and to Sherlock Holmes and to all of this. They're good fun for mystery fans, but don't take them too seriously. I certainly don't. Jamie says, how successful is marketing to Kobo Writing Life reader platform different from the other platforms? Sorry, Jamie, I might just be really tired and full of germs. That's quite likely, but I can't actually. For some reason, your question's not making any sense to me. It's probably my brain tonight. Sorry, but I don't know if you can give me a nudge and a slap round the face, please, and let me know what that what you meant, because I can't make any sense of it. Sorry. Laura says, will you pre-order 99 cents, or did you used to? Is that worth it? I have done. My pre-order period does tend to be cheaper than my main launch price. I do that as a thank you to my mailing list, which I call my VIP club. I've got about, I think, nearly 50,000 people on there now. And it's my thank you to them for sticking with me and for reading my daft emails, that when my new books come out, they get them at a cheaper rate. And a lot of people have been on that list for years and years. So that's my reward to them. And on launch day, the book then goes up to full price, and I start doing my Facebook ads and everything like that. And that tends to work well for me, because then my most loyal readers get the book at a discounted rate. They feel rewarded. I get some nice day one sales come through from the pre-order, and lots of early reviews as well, because my most keen and voracious readers read the book within hours of it coming out, and the reviews are up there on day one on Amazon, and that then helps my marketing going forward. Laura says, which is your biggest vendor? This changes a lot from month to month, depending on what promos I've got running. Did you like that little bit of subliminal advertising there? Buy from Kobo. Usually, more often than not, it is Amazon. Some months Kobo is often the biggest. I've had months this year where Apple has overtaken both. I've had some very, very good months at Apple this year. And even Nook has had some, some sort of mid four-figure months. And that's, that's unheard of. I'm used to getting about £2.50 a month out of Nook. So it changes all the time, because I'm wide and because my focus kind of changes. And if one vendor doesn't sell very many, I try to boost those and try to do some work there. It chops and changes, and I don't mind that. The money that comes in at the end of the month overall is similar, and it means I'm building a platform on all of those vendors. Jamie says, do you market differently to Kobo readers that's different from other platforms? Yes, sorry, Jamie, that does make a lot more sense. It was my brain, apologies. I don't market differently as such. The avenues that I use for marketing can change. So BookBub ads work very well for Kobo, I found. Facebook does sometimes, and I use Kobo's in-house promotions dashboard as well, which works extremely well. If you've got access to that, do as many Kobo promos as you can, because they are brilliant. Simon says, can you see Kobo making a decent push into the UK market? I see they've gone with Walmart in the US. It would be good to see them do something similar over here. It would. The Walmart thing is big news. We're yet to see how it's going to play out and how it's going to affect authors and readers, but hopefully in a good way. It certainly can't hurt. Can I see Kobo making a decent push into the UK market? Yes, I hope so. I think I'm right in saying they're already second biggest here. But a long way behind Amazon, because Amazon are dominant here as they are in the US. I hope they do make a decent push. Yeah, they're a great company to work with. The dashboard is beautiful. The website's great. Crime author dies on video. That would be good on YouTube. I personally read on a Kobo reader. It's my device of choice. It's I've got a Kindle as well, and I've got all of the different e-readers, so I have to test that my books work on them all. But the one that I read on personally is a Kobo, and I absolutely love it. I think it's brilliant. So yeah, I think making readers aware of Kobo is what we all need to do, really. Damon Waves. Hello, Damon. Laura says, has GDPR affected advertising? GDPR, for those who don't know, who aren't in the EU, which will be us in a few months as well, unfortunately. GDPR is a new piece of legislation that came in at the end of May, which says that for people in the EU, you have to be extremely careful how you handle their email addresses and their personal data. So for authors, that tends to be email addresses and on the mailing list. Generally speaking, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so please don't take this as gospel. But generally speaking, for authors, the main thing we have to be sure of is that we have explicit permission and can prove we have explicit permission from readers to email them, and that they gave us their email address knowing we were going to be emailing them for that purpose. And if you're doing things like For example, I used to run a lot of Facebook ads saying, sign up, enter your email address here and I'll send you 4 free books. And that works brilliantly for getting loads and loads of readers onto my mailing list. But now the wording of that has to be changed. It has to be clear that what you are asking people to sign up for is your newsletter. And by doing that, as a little bonus, they'll also get 4 free books. But it has to be the newsletter that is front and center. You can't call it anything else. It has to be very, very clear that that's what they're getting. So it has affected advertising, I suppose, not negatively necessarily. It just means that you need to change the wording on things. People thought that nobody would sign up anymore if you said sign up to my newsletter and I'll give you some free books. I tested it well ahead of time. I did some split testing with adverts and with different landing pages. And in fact, the pages that said sign up to my newsletter and get some free books got slightly higher conversion rates. So I'm not quite sure why. Psychologically, maybe it looks more like you're being honest with them. Readers know that you're going to be emailing them, every couple of weeks, and then you're not just going to give them free books and disappear. So maybe it looks like authors are being honest when they legally have to put it in those terms. I don't know, but it's not affected it massively, I don't think. Laura says, which is the best place for advertising for ROI, for return on investment? That changes all the time. There isn't one place. I would say use AMS. I'd say use Facebook, use BookBub ads. For Kobo, I found that BookBub ads work best. But it changes. It depends. It's, sometimes I've got books that I just can't get a decent ROI out of. I've got an ad might not work. It might be your graphic. It might be the text you use. It's not just down to the actual individual place that you're advertising. So how long is a piece of string? Jessica says, if you were starting new now, would you go wide again? Yes, I would have gone wide much sooner. I was in KU for about 5 years, and I would have been wide from the start if I'd started now. Laura says, how long are your books? I don't plan a length when I start. It's as long as it is, and once the story's told, it's told. I don't like to pad my books out with fluff and go, I've got to get to 80,000 words, I've got to pad it out. I don't do any of that. I write the book. If it finishes and it's a novella, it's a novella. If it's 80,000 words, great. Most of my full-length works tend to just fall naturally somewhere between 50 and 55,000 words, though. Ava says, hello. For free books, who do you use, BookFunnel or the other one? I can't think of the name. Yes, BookFunnel. Tara says, have you ventured into audiobooks? I have. I've spent a lot of money on audiobooks and haven't made it back yet. I did you'll like this. I did the spreadsheet analysis the other day in which I looked at how many audiobooks I'm selling each month, how much I've spent on the production of them, and how many months it's going to take to make back my investment on them. And depending on the book, it's anywhere between 5 and 17 years. So I'm not going to order the speedboat just yet. There's a lot of money that's been invested in audiobooks that isn't going to be coming back to me for quite some time. So personally, I don't do them at the moment for my fiction. If I would probably do them for my psychological thrillers moving forward, especially ones with big hooks, because they tend to sell and they tend to make their money back fairly quickly. I might do a royalty share deal on those. I don't know yet. And I have done the audiobook myself. I recorded that myself and had that professionally produced in the studio for the Indie Author Mindset, which is my new non-fiction books aimed at helping authors to change their mindset and make the most out of their author career. I recorded the audiobook for that recently, and that should be up for sale any minute now. We're literally just waiting for that email to come through to say it's up there. So if you like audiobooks, keep an eye out for that. Or the digital book is available on Kobo. I would strongly advise getting it from Kobo. It's available elsewhere, of course. And the paperback is also available. Jamie says his audiobooks are killing it right now, and he's wide there too. Great to hear, Jamie. Maybe I can get some tips from you on how to make the audiobooks sell, because mine are really, really struggling. So if you wouldn't mind perhaps having a chat at some point, and I can find out what you're doing there, because I'd be really interested in whether you could help me. Ava says, yes, I'm the same. Never think of a word count as I write. Good. That's the benefit we have of being indie authors. We don't need to write to a certain length. We don't have a publisher saying it's got to be 80,000 words. It's got to be in on June 17th. No, stuff them. If it's 15,000 words, it's 15,000 words. You can write what you want to write, put it out there, and you know what? Readers don't care. They really don't. If they get a story and they enjoy it and it sings to them, then that's what they want. So we have that freedom. So run with it. Jessica says, are there any particular mistakes you see new authors making or advice you would give them? Yes, lots, and they tend to be ones that I made as well. At the risk of sounding salesy, that really was the reason I wrote the indie author mindset, because the vast majority of problems that I see people having or questions that people ask, it is down to having not a wrong way of thinking, but a wrong way of thinking and not quite approaching things from the right angle. So I wrote the indie author mindset in order to try and give people that basis and get them thinking the right way about things, because once you do, and once you've got those ways of thinking and those kind of pieces of logic in the right order, everything else just falls into place. So of course I would advise buying and reading that, but I would advise buying and reading that. Laura says, are you a planner when you write, or do you just write and go where the characters take you? I plan a lot, probably too much. You can't plan too much, believe me. I'm a planner, definitely a planner. I would love to be able to just sit down and go, chapter 1, let's see what happens. But even when I plan, I end up writing myself into some dreadful holes. So I will try not to die tonight. I would love to be able to just pants it and see what happened, but I can't, unfortunately. Sorry, in my excuse, I have been quite ill for the past week, and it's catching up with me now. Kim says, everyone says write in a series. You seem to be doing wonderfully on standalone novels. Can you speak to this? Yes, I can. Series are great for residual income. People who hit the first book will quite often read through to book 7, 8, 9 or what have you, so they're great from that point of view. Standalone books, it depends on the genre you write in. My standalones are psychological thrillers largely. They're a big thing, a massive thing. I didn't know that when I wrote my first one. I'm rubbish at keeping up with the market. I'd never heard the word psychological thriller when I put this book out there, so I just happened to hit it at the right time, and that's the reason I didn't put that book out there. It was sitting in a drawer for 6 months with nothing doing on it, because it wasn't part of the series. People always say write in a series, and I hadn't, so that's why I didn't put it out there for a while. But I'm glad I did. Again, I'll say, if it's a standalone, it's a standalone. Put it out there, but it's got to have something to sell it. I mean, my standalones tend to have a marketable hook. Could you murder your wife to save your daughter? What if you discovered your husband was a serial killer? Those are the kind of things that are going to sell the book. It's a different way of selling and marketing a book to a series one. They're two different approaches, really. Jamie, yes, I'll take you up on that. Send me a message afterwards. We'll get that sorted. Laura says, can you do it today on a shoestring budget? Yes and no. You can. Of course you can. You can design your own covers, and you can not have an editor. That will get you a book out there, but it's highly unlikely to be successful. The way I always like to put this is that if you're an indie author, you're not just an author, you're also a business person. You're an entrepreneur. You are an author, and you also run the publishing company. And there's no other business that you would be able to set up without putting some money in. You'd either have to get some leaflets printed. If you were opening a store, you would have to get the sign writing done on the front. You'd have to pay rent. You'd have to employ staff. There are all sorts of overheads involved with running a business. This one has extremely low overheads, believe me. Cover design, editing, getting yourself a website, doing some advertising is all remarkably cheap compared to opening a shop or a store somewhere, or doing any other kind of business where you might be looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars of setup money. So a few $100 really is nothing compared to that, and it really will stand you in good stead. please don't look at it as an expense. Look at it as an investment. This is money that you will make back hundreds of times over if you spend it wisely. Yes, you can get a cheap cover and you can get a cheap editor, but then your books will appear cheap and you won't sell as many. They won't do as well. Whereas if you put a bit of money in now, you will thank yourself for it in the long run, because your sales will be much higher, and readers will take you seriously. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Kim. Suzanne, what keeps you motivated when sales don't meet your expectations? Red wine helps. Bills. Sometimes it is difficult to keep yourself motivated, and quite often, I'm just kicking things under my desk here. Quite often, sales don't meet my expectations, and that's fine. You know, it's a cyclical business. It it goes up and down. It goes through cycles. But you've got to keep going. I do this because I love doing it. I love writing books. I love being a writer. I love doing things like this and talking to you guys and sharing my experience. And that's what keeps me doing it, really. You know, the next book I put out could be a big hit. It could not be. It's it's almost a gamble, a surprise to see what happens. Of course, I hope it's going to work, but you never know. It's a very up and down business, and you've got to take the rough with the smooth. And I can't think of any more cliches to throw in there, I'm afraid. Vicky says, I have a series of 6 books on Kobo with another unrelated book coming out in a few months. My question is how best to leverage the news that our ebooks are now available from Walmart. That's a good question. Very good question, actually. And hopefully the guys from Kobo can weigh in here, because something I'd like to know too. The Walmart news is fantastic. The fact that Kobo have partnered with Walmart in the US, and you can now get your ebooks through Walmart. Potentially huge. Not quite sure how we can capitalize on that and make the most of it, but I'm going to fire an email to Kobo later this week and ask them, because that is not later this week, because it's Friday, so I'll do it tomorrow morning on Saturday and find out how we can make the most of this and hopefully feed that back to you guys as well. Let me know as well if you've seen your books on the Walmart website. I've heard from some people that they're quite difficult to find. The search engine on Walmart's website is apparently pretty poor, so finding the books is difficult. I'm not quite sure how much prominence they're given, but it'll be interesting to see. I'm going to track it. I'm going to see what sales come through there. Hopefully I can find out through the Kobo Dash. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to keep an eye on things and see how that plays out. Ava says, are there any good Kobo specific places for promo? The best Kobo specific place is the Kobo promotions tab on your dashboard. If you don't have that, get in touch with the Kobo guys, explain that you're looking to do more marketing, more advertising. Tell them about yourself, tell them about your books as well, enthuse them, speak to them, and ask. Mention the fact that you're looking to do more promotion, more marketing, and ask if you can have access to the promotions section on the dashboard, and then you can promote your books directly through Kobo's. There are percentage off deals. There are a special discount deals that happen all the way through the year. You can apply for. Hopefully, get some of those. They work very, very well. I'd strongly advise those. In the meantime, BookBub ads work very well for Kobo as well. Lily says, how do you decide the price of a book if there are so many currencies? My wife actually does this for me. Usually set a UK and a US price, and everything else kind of comes from there. It's best to have prices that end in 99 or 95, but there are some local differences as well. So I've got a really itchy nose. If I keep doing this, it's because my nose is really, really itchy. There are some local differences as well. For example, in India and in Japan, there are certain numbers which are actually quite unlucky and some which are quite fortunate as well. So I can't remember which way around they are or which numbers they are, but there are certain numbers you don't want to end your price on, or you do want to end your price on, because it will be seen as more auspicious in those countries. There's a website somewhere I found that explains all that, but it is stuff that is far beyond me and my small brain, I'm afraid. Laura says, do you get your books translated into different languages? I have done. I haven't personally had them translated, but the books that Thomas and Mercer have been translated into German, Portuguese, and French, I believe. I don't think I've got the French ones here. I've got a German one. There we are. That's Her Last Tomorrow in German, not literally, but that's the book. And something strange about Germany as well is they do their books, the spines, the wrong way around. So when they go on when you put them on a shelf, they look really odd because they're back to front. So yeah, Thomas and Mercer did those through Amazon Crossing as part of my publishing deal with them. So I didn't do it myself. And the reason I don't do it, I'll show you the Portuguese one as well while I'm here. There we go. Portuguese, Her Last Tomorrow. How about that? The reason I haven't had them done myself is because it's marketing them, really. I mean, yeah, I could have my books translated into Spanish or French or Mandarin or what have you, but I've got no idea how to publicize and market a book in France or in Holland or in Slovenia. I don't know those markets. I don't know the language. I couldn't do anything with it. So there's very little point in me doing that. It would just go up on vendors and not be seen, and nothing would happen. And translation's expensive. So I need to have something happen with it. So personally, I would advise trying to get an agent who deals in foreign translations and foreign rights, and to use them. They can be really, really handy as well for that. And it's it's money you're not going to make otherwise. I mean, yeah, they'll take 20% or more or whatever, but it's money you're not going to get otherwise. And that's the end. And I'm going to leave it a second or two to see if any more questions come through. We're getting on for 10 past now, so I've outstayed my welcome. So sorry, Kobo. Please don't kick me off. Please do still love me. I don't think any more questions are coming through, so I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for all your questions. If you do still need any inspiration or any tips or anything that might help you, the Indie Author Mindset is out now. Feel free to grab a copy of that, preferably from Kobo, because they're lovely people, and hopefully that will help you in your indie author career. Quick one here from Damon. We've written songs for various novels and had success as novel songwriters. What would your advice be in reaching out to authors? As this is a new concept of bringing to life fictional characters through music, we get to release the songs at the same time as the book. Sometimes we would love to work with an author, but we're faced with agents who do not reply to emails. That's not something I've heard of before. Songs written for novels. That would sound really interesting to me. It's perhaps some marketing and PR ideas there. I'd be interested in hearing more about that, Damon. Do send me an email. And yeah, that sounds really interesting. I can't think of what advice would be to reach out to authors other than mentioning it to them. Indie authors are quite often more approachable than traditionally published authors, and you don't have to worry about the gatekeepers. You don't have to go through the publisher or the agent. You can just get in touch with them directly. And quite a lot of them, like myself, are always on the lookout for a new marketing opportunity and a way to reach new readers. So yeah, do tell me some more. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Ava, Laura, Jessica, Nika, Monica, Suzanne, Tara, Damon. Thank you, everyone who's saying thank you. And thank you. I'm going to hang around for a little bit on the Facebook page. I'll answer your questions by typing them out because that's not going to hurt my throat. So I'll hang around for a little while. Thank you, Kim. And even if I do go off in a bit, I might answer your questions later tonight or tomorrow morning. So don't think I'm just going to disappear and that's it. Do feel free to put your questions there. If you've got anything else you want to ask me afterwards, feel free to go to my website, adamcroft.net. I'm on Twitter @AdamCroft, and my Facebook page is facebook.com/AdamCroftBooks if you want to ask me anything else. It's been lovely chatting to you all tonight. Thank you very much for having me, to Kobo, and thank you everyone for joining in for the great questions, and I hope it's all been really useful. Bye-bye.